Hello and welcome to the English Podcast Lab. I'm Mike, your host. And today we're doing something a little different. We're diving deep into...
A deep dive.
Yeah, exactly. A deep dive into a topic suggested by one of our awesome listeners.
I love it. Listener-powered learning.
That's what we're all about.
Yeah.
So today we're tackling Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Such a great book. It's really had a huge impact on so many people.
For good reason. It's packed with insights about habit formation. And to help us unpack it all, we have the amazing Sarah with us today.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. Atomic Habits is definitely one of those books that once you start reading it, you start seeing these little things you could be doing differently.
You start noticing your habits, right?
Yeah, it's like those tiny things you do every day that maybe you didn't even realize were habits.
Which is kind of the whole point of the book, right?
Yeah.
Those small, those 1% improvements that Clear talks about.
Absolutely. He says if we can just get 1% better each day for a year, we end up 37 times better.
37 times better. That's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But then he flips it and says, if we're 1% worse each day...
we're headed towards zero.
Yeah. Which is kind of a scary thought.
It is. It really highlights how much our daily actions matter, even the ones that seem insignificant.
It's that whole snowball effect, right?
Exactly. Like that saying, we are what we repeatedly do.
So instead of chasing some big, far-off goal, we should be focusing on the systems we build into our lives.
Exactly, because those systems are what drive those long-term results.
So like, instead of obsessing over writing a whole novel...
you build a system of writing for, say, 30 minutes every morning.
That's a good example. It makes it feel less daunting, right?
Much less. Plus, it takes the pressure off that end goal.
And instead, you're just focused on showing up consistently.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's like the difference between wanting six-pack abs and actually going to the gym regularly.
So the gym routine is the system.
And the six-pack abs are the eventual outcome.
Perfect analogy. And you know what that reminds me of?
What's that?
Clear's idea of identity-based habits. It's not just about doing something. It's about becoming the type of person who does that thing naturally.
Yes, such a crucial point. So instead of saying, I want to lose weight, you'd say,
I am a healthy person.
Exactly. I am a healthy person who makes healthy choices.
That subtle shift in mindset is so powerful. It's like you're not fighting willpower anymore.
It's more about aligning your actions with who you believe you are.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Now, Clear gives us these 4 laws of behavior change to help make these habits stick.
Yes. Make it obvious. Make it attractive. Make it easy. And make it satisfying.
4 laws. That's a lot to cover. Where should we even begin?
Well, let's start with the first one. Make it obvious. It's all about increasing awareness of our current habits, good and bad.
So we need to know where we're starting from before we can figure out where we want to go.
Exactly. Clear suggests something called a habit scorecard.
What's that?
It's where you literally track your daily actions and label them as positive, negative, or neutral.
So you're bringing those unconscious patterns to light.
Right. Like if someone's constantly missing deadlines.
Their scorecard might reveal they haven't built in time to finalize tasks.
Yeah. Exactly. It helps you see those blind spots.
It's like holding up a mirror to your day.
And once you know what you're working with, you can start to implement some strategies.
Like what?
Well, Clear talks about implementation intentions, which is basically a pre-commitment strategy.
So instead of just vaguely saying, I should meditate more,
you'd say, after I have my morning coffee, I'll meditate for 10 minutes in my living room.
Very specific.
It removes the guesswork. It makes it more likely you'll actually do it.
It's like setting yourself up for success.
Right. And it builds on the power of existing routines.
Oh, and that reminds me of habit stacking, which Clear also talks about.
Yes, that's another great technique. It's where you attach a new habit to an already established one.
Like after I brush my teeth, I will floss.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're using that existing cue of brushing to trigger the new habit.
So it becomes more automatic.
Right. And it's less about relying on willpower.
Makes sense. And speaking of things that influence our habits, we can't forget about our environment.
Absolutely. Our surroundings play a huge role in shaping our behavior.
Clears talks a lot about that, right?
He does. He says we're far more influenced by external cues than we realize.
So if you're trying to eat healthier,
keep those healthy snacks front and center.
And maybe hide the junk food.
Exactly. Out of sight, out of mind.
It makes the good choice the easy choice.
And if focus is your goal,
well, working from the couch with the TV on is probably not the best idea.
It's comfy, but it's not conducive to deep work.
So it's about designing your environment to support the habits you want to build.
Absolutely.
That's actually really empowering. When you think about it, we have a lot more control over our surroundings than we sometimes realize.
We do, and small changes can make a big difference.
Okay, so we've covered make it obvious.
Right.
Let's move on to the second law. Make it attractive.
Now this is where things get interesting.
how do we make habits more appealing?
Well, some habits are naturally enjoyable. But let's face it,
Some are not.
like flossing or eating broccoli.
Not exactly the most exciting activity.
But that's where temptation bundling comes in.
You mentioned that earlier. Remind me how it works.
It's all about pairing something you want to do with something you need to do.
So like, if you love listening to podcasts, but you struggle to get yourself to work on that report.
You could make a rule only podcast time while working on the report.
Interesting. So you're using the anticipation of the podcast as motivation.
Exactly. It makes the whole experience more enjoyable.
I like that. It's like tricking your brain into doing the thing you need to do.
It's not really a trick. It's more about making the whole process more appealing.
Makes sense. And we can't forget about the power of social influence, right?
Absolutely. We tend to mirror the behaviors of those around us.
So if you want to develop a certain habit, surround yourself with people who already embody that habit.
Exactly. It's like choosing your tribe.
Want to read more? Join a book club. Want to be more active? Find a workout buddy.
It's about surrounding yourself with people who support your aspirations.
I love that. Now, what about breaking bad habits? How do we make those less appealing?
That's a great question. And it's something we all struggle with.
For sure.
One approach Clear suggests is reframing how we think about it.
So instead of saying, I have to give up sugar,
Try saying, I'll have more energy and feel healthier if I reduce my sugar intake.
that's a good one. It shifts the focus from deprivation to the positive outcomes.
Exactly. It's more empowering.
Yeah.
And you can also make the bad habit less appealing by associating it with something negative.
Like what?
Visualization can be helpful if you're trying to quit smoking.
Imagine the damage it's doing to your lungs.
Make the consequences feel real and immediate.
Interesting. Or you could try pairing the bad habit with a physical sensation you dislike.
Like snapping a rubber band on your wrist every time you catch yourself doing it.
Ouch.
Yeah, you want to create that negative association.
Makes sense. The key is to make the bad habit less enjoyable so you're less likely to repeat it.
Exactly. It's about nudging yourself in the right direction, little by little.
This is great stuff. So many practical tips.
It's all about taking those small steps and being consistent.
And remembering that it's a journey. It's not about perfection.
Absolutely. Progress over perfection.
I like that.
You know, one thing that really struck me from Atomic Habits was that idea that we don't rise to the level of our goals.
Oh, yeah.
We fall to the level of our systems.
That's such a powerful statement. It really makes you think about how important those systems are.
Right. It's like if your systems are weak or non-existent, it doesn't matter how ambitious your goals are.
You're not going to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like trying to build a house on a foundation of sand.
Makes sense. So it's not enough to just set a goal. We need to create a system that supports that goal.
A system that makes the desired habit almost automatic.
So we're talking about reducing friction, making the good choice the easy choice,
Absolutely. Because we make so many decisions throughout the day.
both big and small.
Right. And every decision takes mental energy.
So if we can automate those good decisions by building them into our systems,
We free up mental energy for other things.
and we're less likely to make those impulsive choices that sabotage our progress.
Exactly. It's all about setting yourself up for success.
This is making me think about all the areas of my life where I could improve my systems.
Like what?
My morning routine,
Yeah.
my work habits, even how I unwind in the evening.
Those are all great areas to focus on. And remember, systems don't have to be complicated.
They can be small things,
Like laying out your workout clothes the night before.
or setting a reminder to take your vitamins.
Exactly. It's those small tweaks that add up over time.
You know what else I found really interesting in the book?
What's that?
The Goldilocks rule.
Oh, yes. That's a fascinating concept.
Remind me what it's about.
It's the idea that we're most motivated when we're working on tasks that are just the right level of difficulty.
Not too easy, not too hard.
Exactly. We need that sweet spot.
So if something's too easy, we get bored.
And if it's too hard, we get frustrated.
But if it's just right, we get into that flow state.
Where we're fully engaged and making progress.
I love that feeling of being in the flow. It's like time just flies by.
And the Goldilocks rule applies to habit formation too.
How so?
Well, if a habit is too easy to maintain, we might lose interest.
It becomes boring.
Right. So it's important to keep challenging ourselves.
We keep raising the bar as we progress.
Exactly. Find ways to make the habit engaging and rewarding.
You know, this is making me think about my workout routine.
Yeah.
I've been doing the same thing for months now, and honestly,
It's getting a little stale.
yeah, maybe it's time to mix things up, add some new challenges.
That's a great idea. You could try lifting heavier weights.
We're doing more reps,
Or even try a totally new workout altogether.
like a dance class or rock climbing.
Exactly. The important thing is to find something that motivates you.
Something that keeps you coming back for more.
And I think that's a key takeaway from Atomic Habits.
Okay.
It's not about finding that one perfect system.
Or some magic bullet.
It's about experimenting, trying new
And
things.
figuring out what works best for you.
Exactly. It's a process of self-discovery.
And it's about embracing the journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And celebrating those small wins along the way.
Because all those small wins will eventually add up to something big.
They will. And another thing I love about Clear's approach,
What's that?
the focus on identity-based habits.
Yes, instead of just focusing on the actions.
We focus on becoming the type of person who embodies those actions.
So it's not just about losing weight.
It's about being a healthy person.
It's not just about writing a book.
It's about being a writer.
I love that shift in perspective. It's so powerful.
Because when our habits are aligned with our identity,
They become more sustainable.
we're not relying on willpower anymore.
It's more about our actions authentically reflecting who we are.
Exactly. So how do we cultivate more of these identity-based habits?
Good question.
Well, first, we need to get clear on our values. What's important to us? What kind of person do we want to be?
And then we can identify habits that support those values.
Right. So if you value kindness,
Maybe you make a habit of doing random acts of kindness every day.
exactly, or if creativity is important to you,
You make time for creative pursuits each day.
even if it's just for a few minutes.
The key is to find small, manageable ways to align our actions with our values.
And remember, our identity is not fixed.
It's something we can actively shape through our choices.
We're constantly evolving and growing.
And our habits play a big role in that process.
They do. So if we want to change our lives,
We need to start by changing our habits.
and if we want to change our habits,
We need to start by changing our identity.
it all starts with who we believe we are.
This has been so enlightening, Sarah. I'm feeling really inspired to take control of my habits.
That's great to hear. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
So be patient with yourself.
And celebrate every step along the way. It's so important. And before we wrap up, I think it's worth emphasizing the importance of patience.
Oh, absolutely.
Cleary really stresses that building habits, it's not like an overnight transformation.
It's not like you wake up one morning and suddenly,
You're a totally different person.
right? It takes time.
It's a process. It unfolds over time.
We live in a world that's so obsessed with instant gratification.
We want results right now.
But real change, it takes time and effort.
It's like planting a seed. You don't expect a tree to grow overnight.
Exactly. It's about trusting the process.
Sticking with it even when you don't see immediate results.
It's about playing the long game.
I love that analogy. The long game. It's not about quick fixes.
It's about building habits that will last a lifetime.
Habits that will shape our lives in ways we can't even imagine.
That's so true. But how do we stay motivated when we're not seeing those results right away?
Well, one strategy is to shift your focus from the outcome to the process.
So instead of obsessing over the end goal,
You enjoy the journey.
find the joy in the process itself.
Exactly. So instead of fixating on losing 10 pounds,
Focus on how good it feels to move your body.
to get stronger, to eat healthy foods.
Celebrate those small wins along the way.
Every step you take in the right direction, no matter how small.
It's a victory.
It is, and it all adds up.
So even if I just manage to go for a walk every day for a week.
That's something to celebrate.
Absolutely.
You're building momentum. You're proving to yourself that you can do it.
It's about building that self-belief one step at a time.
Exactly. And it's also important to remember that setbacks are going to happen.
We're all human.
We're not perfect.
We're going to have days when we slip up.
We're going to miss a workout or eat that extra slice of cake.
It happens.
The key is to not let those setbacks derail you.
Get back on track as quickly as possible.
Don't dwell on the mistakes.
Learn from them and keep moving forward.
It's all about progress, not perfection.
Being kind to yourself.
Knowing that the journey isn't always going to be linear.
There will be ups and downs.
But as long as we keep taking those small steps,
Those 1% improvements.
we'll eventually get to where we want to be.
This has been such a fantastic conversation, Sarah. Thank you so much for sharing your insights.
It's been my pleasure, Mike.
I feel so much more equipped now to take control of my habits.
And to build a life that really reflects who I want to be.
Exactly. And for our listeners out there, we highly recommend checking out Atomic Habits by James Clear.
It's such a great book. It's full of practical tips and strategies.
That can really make a difference in your life.
Start small, be consistent, trust the process,
And most importantly,
enjoy the journey.
this has been The Deep Dive. I'm your host, Mike.
And I'm Sarah.
Thanks for joining us. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more deep dives into fascinating topics. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for those 1% improvements.